Lakers' miserable season finally culminated in being officially eliminated from playoff contention, and they were put out by the NBA best Suns. Are we sleeping on Devin Booker as MVP? Draymond certainly says so. Plus, Embiid and Giannis were both in action last night, too, so we'll get you caught up on their evenings, the jam-packed standings, and so much more. NBA Today starts right now. Welcome to NBA Today. So 19 of the 20 playoff and play-in spots have been locked in. And just yesterday, we saw 7 teams lock in playoff positions, with seeding still yet to be determined, though. We're going to dive deeper into that in the next hour. The remaining question mark is, who will avoid the West play-in? That's between Denver and Minnesota. But the biggest news, arguably, was which team won't be in the playoffs at all this year. With a win by the Spurs, the Lakers, we know it by now, they needed to win in Phoenix to avoid elimination. Guess what? They didn't. All right, joined alongside Matt Barnes and Ramona Shelburne. Big perk. It's been a long season to get here. Let's just get this over with. All right, let's just do it. Let's look. Let's see how it actually went down. Lakers, they were without LeBron James, still out with that ankle injury. Devin Booker, he didn't care. He's like, I can get this done. Jay Crowder lobs it up to Devin Booker, who finishes with the slam. He is not just a shooter. And then again, Devin Booker, this time with the assist to Mikal Bridges.
He can do it all. He's high flying now. He's out there passing like CP.
Everyone on the Suns played last night. There was no resting.
There is no resting. Even at this point in the season, they wanted to set that franchise record. Chris Paul lobs it up. Yeah. I mean, what do they say? Is that the valley-oop at this point? Chris Paul?
They got a bone to pick this year, and they're showing that.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead to the third quarter, because this is when the wheels started to fall off. Devin Booker lobs it up. It's beautiful. Look at this.
Ball movement. Nothing beats ball movement.
They put on a clinic of ball movement last night. The Lakers, they turn it over. At this point, it's just sloppy. Devin Booker full ahead.
As expected.
Woo! They said, yes, 121-110. Sorry, Lakers, that is the end. The Suns, they set their franchise win record with 3 games still to go. For the third time in franchise history, they'll enter the playoffs with the number 1 seed, both prior instances after 62-win seasons in 93 and 05. They also rostered that season's MVP. So here's Devin Booker after the win.
Did you relish a little bit extra the outcome tonight?
Of course. I mean, that's the type of person I am now. What do you call it? Bullet board material. Our team feeds on that. But, that wasn't our main focus. A franchise record was more important to us. They just happened to be in the way.
I keep telling you, that's how life go. You know what I'm saying? What goes around comes around. That's how it is. And it was Phoenix's turn to come around.
Extremely disappointed. Disappointed for our fan base, disappointed for the Bus family. Who gave us all this opportunity, and we want to play our part in bringing success to Laker basketball, and we fell short.
It's obviously disappointing on many levels, but ain't much you can do about it at this point.
I almost wore the same outfit as DeAndre Ayton to the show today, but I let him borrow my chain. It's fine. All right, Perk, let's start with you, because I don't want to put you on blast here, but in the preseason, you said this Lakers team could win 70 games. Could win 70 games. Obviously, that didn't happen. So how are we going to remember this Lakers season, Perk?
You know what? For as super teams, because that's what the Lakers was supposed to be this year. That's what the Lakers are. When they acquired Russell Westbrook, they're going to be the biggest bust in NBA history. And here's why. For the simple fact that it's not that they got to the playoffs and didn't reach the finals or didn't win the championship. It's not the fact that they didn't even get into the playoffs. It's the fact that they even had another opportunity to get into the play-in tournament to actually give themselves a chance to get in the playoffs, and they failed at that. Look, when you have this many Hall of Famers on your team, you have zero excuses to be 17 games under 500. I don't care what no one says. So as far as with the Lakers this season in 2022, they will go down as the biggest bust for super teams in NBA history. Because you cannot, I repeat, you cannot miss the playoffs and be 17 games under 500. I don't care what no one says.
I agree, Perk. I don't know if I want to say in history. I didn't do enough research for that, but I definitely will say in Lakers history. To start the season with 5 or 6, arguably Hall of Famers, and to end up here, 17 games under 500. And I don't think LeBron's legacy takes a hit. I think his leadership takes a hit here. And when I say that is, he's always done so much for every franchise he's gone to. He's put him on his back. He's done his thing and been able to make, wine out of grapes, however you want to look at it. But this season, I mean, individually, he had a great personal season. But I feel like where he lacked personally was keeping these guys on point. It was disgusting, some of the stuff we had to watch this year from a pure effort and energy standpoint. And when you look at that, you look at someone like a possibly Kobe Bryant, when I've seen him personally get in people's face and just cuss them out to their damn near in tears, and they're grown men. Michael Jordan probably would have been fighting his teammates if he had to see some of the stuff that these guys do. So I feel like what makes LeBron great, he's always been knocked, he's not a killer. He'll make the right pass, and I've always loved that. But I also think sometimes that hurts him because, not saying I've never had him as a leader, and I'm sure he has his ways of particularly leading this team. But I know for a fact if the two guys that I mentioned before saw some of the effort and energy that he saw from his teammates this year, it would have been an issue.
I mean, when Kobe, Dwight, and Nash all had injuries, though, they didn't win a playoff game.
They got to the playoffs, though.
But they didn't win a game. Neither did this Lakers team. The year 19, when he was averaging 22 on 37% shooting, Kobe did. The Lakers, they went 10 and 25 in the games that he played in. So I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, Matt, but I'm not so sure it's well, Kobe Bryant would have been the white horse to fix
No, I'm definitely not saying that. But what I'm saying is Kobe would get in, he would not let the way some of his teammates play.
Sure, but if you get in someone's face and it doesn't
slide.
turn into wins, then you're just getting in somebody's face.
But it's going to be a problem the entire season. And it just didn't seem like, at some point, it just seemed like everyone's just like, oh, well, forget it. It is what it is. And I just know, like I said, this is not even what LeBron has been able to do this season alone has been absolutely incredible. He continues to climb the historical ladder. But I'm just saying, from a standpoint of just not having what he saw on a day in, day out basis sometimes, those guys wouldn't have had it like that.
Yeah. How are you going to reflect on this?
Look, I mean, to me, this was a team that was put together with this idea that the Laker championship teams of the past usually have two dominant players as their core, and they surround them with different role players every year. They added another star to this group. And so we see the two teams that were picked as the co-favorites, the Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Lakers, coming into this season. I'm starting to think that maybe that is not the model anymore in the NBA and how to build a championship team. Look at the teams that are winning right now. The Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker is a bona fide superstar. So is Chris Paul. DeAndre Ayton is on his way up. But that is a full team with a lot of depth.
Right.
I mean, the Suns, when Chris Paul and Devin Booker were out, we thought they would fall off. They did not. They went 8-3 when Chris Paul was out of the lineup. Devin Booker, when Chris Paul was out of the lineup, went 28-7-5. I mean, this is not just three guys on max contracts and fill it out with minimum veterans. This is the collapse of the star system in the NBA right now.
Well, and you heard what Devin Booker said to Dave McMenamin. Hang on, Park. You heard what Devin Booker said to Dave McMenamin. He said that it felt a little extra sweet because remember what Anthony Davis said just a little while ago, that the Suns know that they got lucky. So I'm kind of over this. I can finally say we're done. The Lakers are done. So we're going to move them over here and we're going to talk about the winners, the number one placed Phoenix Suns. Because last night outcome, yet another win for the first place Suns. And Draymond Green, he said yesterday, simply put, Devin Booker is the best player on the best team, and that means he deserves the MVP. So does he have a point, Ramona?
He has a point. I think Devin Booker should absolutely be in the top 5 of your MVP ballot. I think there's 3 candidates who statistically are better than Devin Booker in other measures too, but Devin Booker will be in my top 5 when I vote for MVP. I
said when I vote, we'll flex.
There you go.
Well, I mean, you have a vote too, right? Okay. I think his problem, and it's not his fault, is that he splits votes with Chris Paul. It's hard to tell who the MVP of that team is. I think he jumped ahead of Chris Paul because Chris Paul was injured, with the thumb injury for such a long time. But Devin Booker is the MVP candidate on that team, and I think 18 of the last 20 MVPs have come from teams that finished first in the conference. Like this is a different break that we've had now in the NBA, where it used to be best player on the best team.
Big Perk, I have a feeling that you have something to say about all this.
Yeah, I do. One, everything that comes out of Draymond Green's mouth ain't the gospel. That's the first thing. Second, I do think that Devin Booker should be in the conversation. But look, this is what I've been talking about for so long for us. what is the criteria for us winning the MVP? Let's not forget that we rewarded Russell Westbrook, and rightfully so, when he won the MVP. The Oklahoma City Thunder didn't have the best record in the league. Jokic, last year, they didn't have the best record in the league. Like, to me, when I look at the guy that's the MVP, it's the guy that's the most valuable to that team. If you take that guy off that team, what that team would be. And right now, I said it yesterday and I say it again. My MVP candidate is Joel Embiid for what he had to go through. For his superstar, his all-star, and Ben Simmons quitting on him and him carrying the load, keeping them afloat. Also, right now, who's on the verge of winning the scoring title? That's Joel Embiid. The last big man to do that was Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal won the MVP. We have to keep the same energy, and we have to figure out where's the criteria and stop moving the goalposts every single season on what the MVP is going to be.
I mean, look, Devin Booker, it certainly seems to me that he's making a case to, at the very least, finish top 5 in MVP voting, and even that isn't a lock. You mentioned that 18, Ramona. 57 of 66 were the 1 seed to the 2 seed. Joel Embiid and the 76ers, though, they're up there in the standings in the other conference. So, Perk, let's take a little bit of a deeper look at your MVP candidate. Leading scorer in the NBA after last night, Joel Embiid has a narrow edge on LeBron James, who must play in 2 more games to qualify after a huge night for Joel Embiid in Indianapolis. So let's take a little bit of a deeper look at that performance from Joel Embiid and the 76ers. So the first quarter, just look at this. Gets off his feet, nifty, finger roll, beautiful. And then closing the first quarter, once again, look at this. Look how many defenders are on him, throws it up off the backboard, and he hits it. One more look at this. I mean, that's beautiful. And then you can go ahead, he can get it done on the inside too. Overpowering the smaller defender, lays it in. I mean, over and over and over again. He ended up finishing with 45 points, 13 rebounds. The Sixers win it. Here's Embiid after the game.
I told him that I've seen everything. Double team, triple teams.
Give him a damn MVP.
Yeah, that's what we like to hear.
I told him that I've seen everything because he tried a hard double. He used to do that in the past when he was with Atlanta. So I just told him, I was like, he ain't going to work. I've seen everything. I'm going to make the right plays. I'm going to find my teammates. And then I'm just going to be aggressive and get deep position.
When your former teammate is saying that you need to win MVP, I mean, that's saying a little something. But LeBron, he still needs to play in 2 more games to qualify for the scoring title, on top of putting up some big numbers. And Joel, obviously, with a monster output last night. So here's my question to you, starting with you, Matt Barnes. The scoring title, Perk just alluded to it. Who does it matter more to?
I think in this point, it's going to matter more to Embiid because I think it's going to stamp his MVP trophy he should be getting. But I think LeBron really wanted this. I mean, it's been a disaster of a season to think at his age, what he's been able to do individually this season, statistical wise, the historic players he continues to pass. This would have been somewhat a bittersweet, like, yeah, this is a terrible season, but hey, man, Bron won the scoring MVP. But to your point, he needs 2 more games to qualify. Perk, I don't know if he can play in these next 2 to 3 games for the simple fact that he didn't play when it mattered last night on an elimination game. So people are going to start saying, like, well, you didn't play against Phoenix, but you're going to try to come back and win the scoring title. So it could be a little tricky for him to come back and play. I would love to see Bron win the scoring title at this age just because it's been such a nasty season for them over there in LA.
Perk, you started to talk about this earlier. I think you were leaning towards Embiid.
Yeah, I am. Look, I feel like with Embiid, it was stamp him winning the MVP. Like I said before, the last big center to lead the league in NBA won the MVP, and that was Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, this guy's putting up 30 a night, and he's doing it on a consistent basis against whomever. And this was before James Harden. Right now, what he's doing and how he's carrying the load in the tougher conference, I have to say it matters most to Embiid. But I will say this to you guys. I strongly believe that LeBron James should not want to win the scoring title. And this is why. Your team cannot be 17 games under 500 and miss the playoffs on the super team and you win the scoring title. I feel like that would be a bad look for Braun, because how would that look for anybody that is sitting at the table for us the GOAT conversation, and you're sitting at the table, you're saying, hey, I won the scoring title, but my team didn't make the playoffs, they didn't make the play-in, and we finished 17 games under 500. It just don't look good.
That's a good point, Perk. I know what you're saying. I think being able to say you're the oldest scoring champ ever at age 37 and almost a half, okay? 37, almost a half for LeBron James.
Oh, man.
That's 2 years older than Michael Jordan was when he won his last scoring title, who is the current oldest player ever to win it. I don't think LeBron can win it now, though, too. I don't know how you justify playing in 2 of the last 3 games. When you, like, my understanding, honestly, with his ankle injury, if this is an injury that would have kept him out 2-3 weeks in the regular season, he only played in that game the other night because they had to win it. And so he and Anthony Davis gave it a go. It set him back a little bit. I don't know how you can put yourself out there. Plus, if he plays, he can't just play. He has to try to score 30 because that'll make his numbers go down.
You got to shut both them down, AD and Braun, for the rest of the season.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? LeBron James is in a different conversation than everyone else, right? And so when you start to put him in that conversation with Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you start to set the bar and say, all right, well, let's go back and look at when Jordan won the scoring titles or the multiple scoring titles that he won. What was their record with the Bulls?
Early it was terrible.
If you go back and you see...
But we don't even remember.
But
that's
what I'm
the
saying
point.
is,
He's the oldest scoring champ, but I don't remember that year, but... He has it. He has that title.
I think it would have looked nice.
I just
nice
don't
talking.
think it's a good
We're going to have a
15
chance
years
to
from
dig
now.
into this a little bit more.
There's so much pressure on Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert to get going, and this is a big win for them.
I would absolutely agree. I was watching this game thinking, wow, are the Grizzlies really going to come back and do this here?
the Jazz going to
Rudy
blow another
Gobert
one?
is making a case for Defensive Player of the Year here. Speaking of postseason awards, the Heat, they scored 144 points against Charlotte. Tyler Hero, career-high 35. Perk, is he your 6th man of the year?
Absolutely, you could book it. He got my vote. But look, the Miami Heat, just a few weeks ago, we were talking about the little scuffle and the little hissy fit they had on the sideline. All of a sudden, it worked because now the Miami Heat are actually playing a great brand of basketball.
Absolutely. And Tyler Hero knows he's going to need to keep it up in the playoffs as well. All right, Jalen Green had 30 last night in Brooklyn, his 5th straight game with 30 or more. Last rookie to do that was AI. So, Matt, what's the ceiling for Jalen Green here?
I think he's an all-star. You know, this guy's in rare air right now with his 30-point streak. Only a handful of guys have been in that conversation, and this kid is going to be a star.
I want to stick in this same game here because on the other side, Kyrie, he dropped 42. Oof. So is he the biggest individual X factor heading into the postseason, Matt?
I think he is. You know what you're going to get from KD. We're still trying to figure out what the rest of the team's going to give. But if Kyrie is Kyrie that we saw last night, this team still, no one necessarily talking about them right now, but they can win a championship.
This was the original duo, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. They joined forces a couple years ago.
And Nick Claxton's like, that is nasty. A little handshake to top it off. Whew. All right, I do want to stay in the East here, though, because we have some news. I want to bring in our senior NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, to focus in on the Bulls here, who, despite losing to the Bucks last night, they clinched their first playoff spot in 5 years. But as you reported, Lonzo Ball will not return for the remainder of the 21-22 season and will continue daily treatment and rehab of his left knee in preparation for next season. So what went into this decision, Woj?
Malika, they tried to rehab that knee, get Lonzo Ball back on the court, and they were just unable. The knee continued to cause him discomfort. So the Bulls are shutting him down now for the rest of the season, and they'll use the offseason to get him back. But this is a player who was so integral to the Bulls' early success.
Yeah.
And now, listen, they've got to get him healthy for next year. He had issues with this left knee in the past, had the meniscus surgery in January, and now this is a Chicago team that will go the rest of the way without him.
And sticking with the stars here, Zach LaVine did not play last night due to left knee soreness. What's the latest with Zach's health as they prepare to face the Celtics tonight?
Well, he set out last night on this back-to-back with Boston. He's expected to play tonight against the Celtics. He's only missed one game since he tweaked that knee prior to the All-Star break. He's going to play with discomfort for the rest of the season. They'll deal with it in the offseason. But, Zach LaVine, Listen, he knows there is more on him for this Bulls team right now with the injuries they've had, with Ball out, with Alex Caruso dealing with back issues. Zach LaVine's going to press on, but he's not been 100%. I think that's been clear if you've watched him.
Absolutely, and Zach knows the load that is on his shoulders right now. Lastly, Woj, I understand that you have some news about the NBA draft. What can you share with us?
Kentucky's Ty Washington, one of the best guards in the country. He's declared for the June draft. Really an explosive playmaker. Played one season at Kentucky. Considered maybe the best pick-and-roll point guard in this draft. He played through an ankle sprain for really most of the second half of the season. NBA teams saw his toughness, his willingness to play hurt, but this is an explosive player. You know, he'll get past that ankle injury. This is a lottery pick in the draft. Really a prototypical point guard for the modern NBA.
Absolutely. Ty averaging 12.5 points, 3.9 assists, and rocks to climb.
Sights to see and flights to catch. I can't wait for what tomorrow will bring. But in the meantime, let's enjoy the ride.
It's all you.
No, I insist.
It's your turn.
Nope, I think it's your turn.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. Go.
I appreciate your appreciation. It fills me.
Safe drivers save money with Farmers.
Just for driving safely?
It's a Farmers policy perk. Get Farmers and you can get a safe driver discount simply for having a clean driving record for 3 years.
Come on. After you.
After you.
Safety first.
Get a whole lot of something with Farmers policy perks.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
It's easy to think that all money managers are pretty much the same, but at Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Different how?
Dave McMenamin. So, Dave, what's the mood inside the franchise this morning?
Malika, there's a hangover over this team right now. They stayed the night in Phoenix. They're going to fly to San Francisco today for their first of the final 3 games that mean nothing in terms of their postseason contention. But just being around the team, walking out of Footprint Center last night, there was a sense of a lack of accomplishment, but also a recognition that things just didn't go their way. Russell Westbrook, I asked him, listen, you know, you got 21 games between you, LeBron, and Anthony Davis. Does that give you a sense of wanting to get a real chance to do this all over again with more games? And he said, that's the plan, but that may be out of our control. And that's the story of this season. There were things that were both in the Lakers' control and out of the Lakers' control that went terrible in this treacherous year.
The Lakers all season have not taken accountability.
They don't know how to win games no more.
It's fitting we have white collars on because we're going to administer last rites.
Ever been at the movies and the film was so bad you wanted to bounce but couldn't because you were on a date? Or been stuck on a turbulent flight with no choice but submit to the harrowing experience until the plane touched down? That was the Los Angeles Lakers 2021-22 season. It's finally over. You can go now.
I hate losing. This is not what none of us signed up for, obviously.
The play-in tournament was supposed to be a lifeline that ended up trapping the Lakers in their snake-bitten season long after the jury was out. A collapse after the All-Star break brought about the merciful ending, and with it, a cease to incessant injuries. A break from defensive breakdowns. The turnovers turned off, and missed shots that won't be missed.
Sucks telling these guys every game, proud of you, good effort. We lost.
The end of their playoff hopes coincides with the beginning of questions anew about how this team moves forward. Will Frank Vogel keep his job? Is there a shakeup in store for the front office? Which role players will return? Will LeBron James commit to a contract extension this summer? Can they rely on Anthony Davis? Will they trade Russell Westbrook, or perhaps a better phrasing, can they trade Russell Westbrook?
Quit making excuses. This thing did not work out. The parts did not fit. It's a mess.
They're all questions that will be answered in the future, as opposed to the questions looking back on the year that will remain unknown.
The biggest
thing that I think about personally is what could we have been.
Like, I walked out of the arena with Anthony Davis last night, and I asked him, do you feel like this extended offseason you have ahead of you gives you an opportunity to reevaluate your training methods to perhaps put yourself in a better position to play more games moving forward? And he told me, actually, that's not the case at all. He told me the Lakers medical staff have told him that both the injury he suffered in Minnesota with the knee and the injury he suffered against the Jazz where he landed on Rudy Gobert's foot, that both of them could have been season-ending in their own right had he not already adopted a strong training method and work ethic. And so he believes he already has a pathway to move forward and stick to be a more effective player and play more games moving forward. One more thing I can tell you, for any Laker fans out there itching for some sort of consequential move as a result of what happened last night, I'm told the Lakers coaching staff have not heard anything from the Lakers front office in terms of a decision that made about their jobs moving forward. And so you will see that coaching staff in San Francisco against the Warriors on Thursday night.
3 more games remaining for the Lakers, and then the questions begin in the offseason. Dave McMenamin, thank you so much. Now, the Lakers, they weren't even very good in the 21 games with LeBron, Davis, and Russ in the lineup, winning just 11 of them. And their offense was, with this trio on the court, scoring fewer points per 100 possessions than every team but the Pistons, the Thunder, and the Magic did for the season. So not exactly the company that you want to be in. So back here with Ramona Perk and Matt. And Ramona, let's start with you. You're so plugged in with this franchise. You heard Dave talk about the coaching staff. What will the roster look like next season?
Well, I think that discussion begins and ends, well, not ends, but begins with Russell Westbrook and what they do with him. And my understanding, Malika, is they are not inclined to necessarily incentivize a trade for him, just like they weren't at the trade deadline. I think the sense is if you have let a new staff, let a new person try to do this again. It's $47 million. They don't necessarily want to attach a draft pick or a THT to just get rid of him. Now, then that puts the onus on Russell Westbrook. Would he do a buyout? Okay. Right now, he was asked that last night. What he said yesterday. That's the plan. Now, I think Russ is a very proud person. And when you do a buyout in this league, you become a person who has done a buyout in this league. And there is something for him, and he would have to get very comfortable with that idea. Right now, I don't think he's there. My sense is he's a proud person and a proud player. I don't think that's his inclination at all. And so then it goes back to the Lakers. Would they waive and stretch him? It was pointed out to me yesterday. Luol Deng is still on the Lakers cap. Remember Luol Deng? $5 million of the Lakers cap is still going on that Luol Deng contract. This is the last year, though. And so do they really want to start that process all over again by waiving and stretching Westbrook? All of which leads us to this very point, which people don't believe. I'll believe it when I see it, okay? But the big three, I think probably more likely that they come back in that form or fashion again.
Well, when you said that Russ said that's the plan, he was saying that about coming back to the Lakers. And we all heard Magic Johnson the other day say that if they had DeMar DeRozan instead, that they would have gone to the Western Conference Finals. I think that is partially rooted, though, in the fact that if they had signed DeMar, then potentially they could have kept Alex Caruso or some of these other players on contracts. Potentially. Perk, what do you make of what you just heard from Ramona Shelburne, that there is a likelihood that this big three could be returning next year for the Lakers?
Well, it's a lot to think about, but I'm going to say this. You know, the Lakers have made their bed and they have to lay in it. And I think that Russell Westbrook is not going anywhere. I think they're going to run it back. The unfair thing about this situation is that someone has to take the blame and someone has to take the fall and someone has to be the scapegoat. And I think that's going to be Frank Vogel, unfortunately, a guy that just delivered a championship there. But somebody has to take the blame. He's going to be the fall guy. And I hate it for Frank Vogel because if you go and look at what he's done as a head coach for us with the Pacers and with the Lakers and things to that nature, he has done an exceptional job. He's well respected. But I think they're going to let him go after the season. I think they're going to bring back the entire big three. I think Russell Westbrook is not going to go into that buyout market because once you go into that buyout market and you put yourself in that position, it's no point of return. Like, once you go into that buyout market, now you're floating in dangerous waters where now you're putting yourself in another tier of players that you really don't want to be in. So I think they're going to bring their big three back, going to give it another run, and I think they're going to let Frank Vogel go.
I think Frank will be a casualty of war for everything that Perk said. I mean, just 2 years removed from a championship, playoff first-round exit, but they were an injured team, and then this year's team is a disaster. I think he lost the respect of the team. Not to say he's not a good coach and he won't land on his feet, because he will, but he's just lost the respect of the team. And then I also agree, Perk, they're going to bring this team back. I mean, it was really only 21 games together, and although those numbers were impressive, they needed time to figure it out. And I think in order for this to work is LeBron is probably going to have to make the most sacrifice, because if you think about it, he is a ball-dominant player. Going to be the number one scorer of all time, top 10 in assists, so there's no one else you really want to have the ball in their hands than him. But I think in order for this to work, he has to be able to find that balance where he can let Russ be Russ. When Russ is by himself, he's still at 26, 8, and 7 without the two superstars. With Bron, he's at 16, 7, and 6. So Russell Westbrook can still play this game, but to me, what it's going to take is him and LeBron really being on the same page and that give and take of when you can go, when I can go type situation. But they don't really have too many choices outside of that.
Well, we'll end this on this. When I was in Staples Center on the sidelines the other day, I asked someone within the organization, I said, hey, how are you? And they told me, oh, we don't ask that question around here. We say hello, we say good afternoon, we say good morning, but we don't ask how.